Hello, good evening and welcome to my layout. Tonight is Thursday. It's about 8:05 on the 11th of February. Obviously still in the middle of lockdown. Good news is Dad should be getting his vaccine tomorrow. Now I'll wait and see when I get my first dose. Hopefully it's the first step to relieving things a little, but while this lockdown's in place, and I think I'll even go beyond the lockdown now, I've got my little railway running for everyone to see. Now the train you can see going around at the moment is a diesel, and in fact tonight we're having a diesel evening. All the videos you've seen so far of mine have been in relation to steam engines. This is all diesels. Now these are diesels which were seen on the Western region of British Rail. The Western region of British Rail was a successor to the Great Western, and it was planned that D-Day or Diesel Day will be at the end of 1965, when there will be steam totally eliminated from the Western region of British Rail. That did not go according to plan. In fact, steam was finally removed from British Rail after the Somerset and Dorset Joint Railway was closed on the 6th of March 1966. So that's when steam was finally totally eliminated. And then this is the kind of locomotives that were designed to take over from the steam engines. It was a time of great change. Now obviously you have the dieselisation and also the Beeching Report, which began basically a bloodbath of closures of railways, just one railway closed after another, in an attempt to make the British railways more profitable. So it was both a good time for some and a bad time for others to be involved in the rail industry. Now these Hymex, I think about 100 of these were built, and they were in use right from the early 60s right to the mid 1970s. In fact, on some duties they were actually used to replace a King class locomotive. They're what they call diesel hydraulic rather than diesel electric locomotives, and that was one of the reasons why they all disappeared from our railways by about the sort of mid 70s, around about 1976-77. That's when all of the these Western type diesels were eventually all withdrawn. Now the other two locomotives you can see in the main station there, that's two warships. The green one is High Flyer, and the maroon one is Druid. And they were meant to take over from the big express engines, certainly from Paddington into the West Country. They were meant to take the crack expresses. In fact, they were superseded by the Western class of locomotive, a more powerful class, and that came not long after these were actually launched. But they were still very useful locomotives and were used up until the early 1970s. And many say that the Hymex, which is going around now, was one of the most successful of the Western designs. Now the model you see, if we're talking about the model form now, this first appeared in the Hornby catalogue in 1966, and this could well be a model from 1966. Certainly, if not 1966, certainly from the mid 70s, at the very, very latest. So you can, I've just turned the controller up just slightly on this one. So all those something that was made possibly at the very, very latest in the 1970s is still going strong today. In fact, I bought this at a model railway exhibition that had some trade stands. I bought this in the mid 1990s. Okay, so that's the Hymex going round, made by Hornby. And we're going to bring them into the station in just a moment. So I'm going to slow things down just a moment. Now these would have been seen all over the western region of British Rail. Go slow that down now. We'll back her up, just see if we can get her over the points now. That was a slight overrun there. We'll just change the points. There we go, change the points. And we'll just see now if we can get past the points. There we are, that's perfectly into my station. There we are. Now the next one you're going to be seeing now is going to be one of our warship classes, and I think we'll be giving High Flyer a little run tonight. I'm still running this one in from a heavy repair, so if you just bear with me just one moment, we need to change the points over it. There, that's set for the main line now. And while we're here, we're going to set this one ready for the diesel multiple unit, which is next to the high mech. We just need to check the points are correct here and here. There we are. And we'll see High Flyer leave the station. Let's say it's been to carry out some pretty drastic repairs to this one. I think I may have mentioned this one in the previous video. I'm not sure. Anyway, here we go. High Flyer. Now, one thing I like about this model, and you can see this feature here, if I slow her down just for a second and stop her, and you'll see when I switch on to go forwards, the front of the cab lights up. That's a nice feature. And I had to fix the gears on this one. One of the gear sets was completely broken, but you can in fact buy spares for these on the internet still, and that's what I managed to do. So I've carried out repairing to the gears, and the gears are still running in, but it's able to move forwards and backwards now. So if anybody asks where you can get the parts from to mend one of these, please put that in the comments. Okay, so that's this one. It's putting a set of Great Western coaches. In fact, it would have probably been putting some of the blood and custard coaches, or possibly maroon coaches. The liveries certainly of coaches was changed quite a lot after British Rail was nationalised. I think with an engine like this, I like to see it putting the proper Great Western coaches, chocolate and cream. In fact, I think that's the best combination with this engine. And as you see, she runs quite well as a model. These would have been seen powering their way from Paddington down to the West Country, taking over from some of the Top Express steam locomotives. And like I say, this was a time of great change within British Railways, and certainly in our neck of the woods, the western region of British Rail. And in fact, I think all the Great Western locomotives were actually decommissioned by the end of 1965. And maybe like just one or two may have survived on the Somerset and Dorset until March 1966. Now these were brought in 1958. They're the actual real trains, the warship diesels. And they would have been used until about 1972, I think. Now, as far as it being a model concerned, this is a mainline model. I should imagine that a lot of this was carried forward into the Bachmann model. Mechanically, the Bachmann model will be quite different. That's a model chain, not the actual real one. But as you can see, it's going around quite the track quite well in mainline form. One of the weak points with these was, on the model at least, was on the axles driving the wheels. There are a couple of cogs driving each of the driven axles, and they can break. And in fact, that's what I've done. I've actually fitted a replacement for one of those cogs, and it was quite a relatively straightforward job. So there we go. That's our lovely warship. Now what we're going to do, we're going to put the warship up by the signal. That's it. And then we're going to change the points and bring them into the station. And then the other warship diesel Druid will be brought out onto the main line. So here we go. Quick change of points once more. There we go. So we're switching from the main line into the station line. There, so the points are now set for the main line. Now this one here, Warship Druid, is in maroon, and the difference between this one and the main line, you probably just noticed it with it going by now, apart from the colour, is the fact that it doesn't light up. And this is made by a company called Lima, a company based in Italy that built British locomotives. And I think I bought this in about 2002, while Lima was still producing locomotives. I think they stopped producing in 2004. A really nice locomotive. And I do believe that Hornby took over Lima, or at least some of them, and they bought out the mouldings and the tools and everything else. So this one lives on, I think, in the Hornby Railroad range. Presumably it would have a different motor in it, and different mechanism, but basically it externally it's more or less the same. You can imagine taking one of these going on express, putting coaches towards the West Country. And as you see, it's got a lovely engine. The more modern offerings have got slightly more detail on them, but this is quite a very robust model. You can pick these up on eBay for a fairly reasonable price. Now, with this being a warship diesel, I don't know if I can show you. I'll just stop the train for a second. It'll be quite appropriate to have our, I don't know if you can see them there in the station, that's naval personnel. So they're presumably all waiting to catch the train to their ship. So I thought it would be quite appropriate to have the warship diesel running tonight. obviously a diesel night as opposed to steam. I've mainly been doing steam lately, so I thought diesel might make a nice change. And I can explain to you a little bit about the changes of diesels, why they came in, and why these were withdrawn. Now, I think one of the reasons why they decided to go with diesel was hopefully to save on manpower. I think it was getting more and more difficult to recruit on the railways. So obviously you would have hopefully needed less people employed on these diesels. Now, certainly the arrival of diesels, I think a lot of people didn't see them coming, and certainly for some of the long-serving steam engine drivers, these must have been quite a shock. You can imagine somebody, say, with 30 odd years service, and they've reached the peak of their profession on steam engines, probably worked their way up from being a cleaner to being a fireman to a driver, taking years and years learning how to drive a steam locomotive, and suddenly they're confronted with these new diesels. And in fact, unfortunately, some of the long-serving drivers gave up their position as a top link driver and volunteered to go down into the sort of lesser links of railways. They went from the crack expresses down to the secondary routes, possibly where there was still steam being run, and eventually would have ended up possibly driving diesel multiple units on local services. But they found, some people found the transition from steam to diesel quite hard to cope with, sadly. But other people took to it like a duck to water. Obviously, no need to shovel in coal anymore. The driver had a nice comfortable cab, all enclosed. Probably go home nice and clean at the end of the night, or at least cleaner. So these, as much as they were dreaded by some, the arrival of these, they were much welcomed by others. And obviously, as diesel locomotives got bigger and more powerful, the power of these, I mean, literally flattened out hills where maybe a steam locomotive would be struggling. These could power up the hills. Now, as we're going around, we'll have another look at High Flyer. I bought this at a Model O exhibition second hand. It wasn't boxed, and I didn't realise at the time, but it was quite damaged. It didn't run properly in one direction, and also there's little steps which go here, and they've been broken off from the other end. I don't know whether somebody took them off because they made it easier for it to go around the tracks, I don't know. But I didn't notice that till quite some time after I got it home. That's High Flyer. You can still get that second hand on eBay. And this Lima model don't have the steps leading up to the cab. See, there's no steps at all. You can see on the back one there. There's handrails, but no steps. And again, I think what was happening is that maybe on the tight curves on some people's model railways, the steps were possibly fouling the wheels. You can see the bogey's got 4 wheels on it, and then 4 at the back too. So I think it's called a Bobo or something. And B meaning 2, I guess. And 0 meaning no other wheels. And the later Class 52 Westerns had more wheels in their bogies. I will have a look at a Western another time. That's for another day. This is what came in to replace the steam engines. Okay, so We're going to bring this one in now, and then we're going to have a quick look at this, the last diesel. And we can talk about these models in more detail if you wish, and about the rail locomotives and how they made a change on to British Rail. Obviously the Beeching Axe came in at the same time as dieselisation, and a lot of the lines that some of the diesels are meant to run on were actually closed. But it was an attempt to actually make the railways pay. So we're going to come into the station now with our Druid, made by Lima. A nice controlled entrance into the station, look at that. Beautiful. Oh, look at that. Really nice. Really nice little entrance into the station there. So now we're going to flick the line over, and we're going to have a look at this last item. It's a diesel, you can see it's a diesel multiple unit. We just see now. It may need a helping hand because this this piece of track was quite dodgy up this end. I'm sorry to say, I'll have to give it a helping hand maybe. Bear with me just a moment. Sorry about that. You get to see my running session warts and all. Again, it's another loose piece of track I need to replace, or at least replace the joints here. You can see, yeah, it's all loose there. It's not making good contact. So that's not fault with the locomotive. Let's put it on there. So now she's set to go straight ahead. Right. That's live videoing for you. The Class 121 diesel multiple unit, called Bubba cars. I think maybe the reason why they were called Bubba cars is because of the way their cab looked. It looked like the Bubba cars. Probably not many of you will, except unless you're my age, will remember Bubba cars. I'm 63 now, and they were basically a three-wheeled sort of tricycle, basically, that people drove around in. The Bubba car, as in car form, was basically killed off by the arrival of the Mini, and that again is another thing which affected railways a great deal, was the coming of the availability of popular cars like the Mini. Now this Class 121 was designed to take over on branch lines where steam engines were originally in operation. And in fact this one could be seen like this on the Clevedon branch between Yatton and Clevedon. In fact they were made to replace the steam engines, and in fact I've got photos of the last day of steam on the branch, and again it must have been sad to see the steam engines go, but then again a nice, as these people have seen it, a nice clean diesel. Again, it's made by this company called Lima, this of Italy, and I bought this back in the mid 2000s, just before the company in fact closed down, unfortunately. Now these were moved around quite a lot because the very lines that they were built to run on were actually closed in the Beeching Axe. So the line from Clevedon to Yatton was closed in 1966, only 6 years after they went diesel, so they basically had 6 years to prove their worth. And in fact I think the last place they were running in the West Country, and I might be corrected on this, was on the Bridport branch between Bridport and Maiden Newton. Bridport is a sort of a town near West Bay. Some people may have seen West Bay in I think it's in Broadchurch. West Bay's featured. And then once that line was closed in 1977, they were moved on again. And in fact, I think they ended up in Buckinghamshire, on the Buckinghamshire Railway. And they were actually carried on to about 2016, if I remember rightly. So they had a very, very long service, very successful diesel multiple units. Now we'll just bring around and have a little look. There's a cab. Not too much cab detail inside. Got little windscreen wipers on it. Got the destination board on it. And then inside you've got all the seats and everything else. But somewhere in amongst these, this particular one, they had to accommodate a rather large Ringford style motor. And in fact it does take up quite a lot of the cab. Okay, but that's one of those things really. I mean, it can't be helped. You know, you've got, I mean, more modern motors, a lot smaller now. They fit. I think it fits in there, and in fact, you can if you turn it around, yeah, you can actually see the floor down through this cab because it's where the motor is actually put in. In fact, you can see, I can looking inside now. I don't know if you can see it. We can see, oh yeah, see a black cog there through one of the windows. So that's all the mechanism inside there. So I think it might be difficult to put a driver in there. Unless he's Fred Flintstone, perhaps. But that's limitations of the model. In fact, I don't think it detracts from the model at all. I'm going to bring it around into the station. There. Let the passengers let the passengers be picked up over in that station over there. I'm guessing my words modelled slightly tonight, so apologise for that. Okay, so you've got an idea about dieselisation and when dieselisation came in. It began on the western region of British Rail around about 1958, and then 8 years later, 7 or 8 years later, finally steam was actually eliminated from the western region of British Rail, and this is the kind of engines you would have seen instead of the steam engines. Okay. So I hope you found this video interesting, and if you like what you see, then you click on like and subscribe if you like that as well. Click on subscribe. My YouTube channel is called Paul Cherry Trains. Okay, these videos will appear on in YouTube, and also a link will be on Facebook as well. Okay, so just subscribing is what it means. Is you're not going to pay a subscription. You're just going to be, when you go onto YouTube, you'll be made aware of if I've made any new videos. Alright, so we'll leave my little class 121 going around in circles, and I will bid you farewell. I thank you very much for watching, and good night. Thank you.